In 2019, I signed with him the deal. I signed with him, Macron and Merkel, we signed ceasefire. Ceasefire. All of them told me that he will never go. We signed him with gas contract. Gas contract. Yes, but after that, he broken this ceasefire. He killed our people and he didn't exchange prisoners. We signed the exchange of prisoners, but he didn't do it. What kind of diplomacy, JD, you are speaking about? What do you mean?
We all remember that first meeting in the White House between President Zelensky and President Trump back in March. As we remember, something of a disaster having taken place, harangued by journalist Brian Glenn for not wearing a suit to the meeting. Zelensky faced then a dressing down by Vice President J.D. Vance. President Trump accused the Ukrainian leader of not showing enough gratitude to the US, not having the cards to call the shots. But now Zelensky is returning with a group of European allies. So how differently might this meeting go? And what are the Ukrainian people expecting from this meeting? Maria Romanenko is a Ukrainian journalist who joins us now. Maria, good afternoon. Thanks for giving us your time.
Good afternoon. Thanks so much for having me.
What is the priority going to be for President Zelensky in this meeting, accompanied by those European leaders tomorrow in the White House?
Well, I think tomorrow's meeting in the White House will look very different from February, when Zelensky was left alone with Trump and humiliated. This time, Zelensky walks in with Europe at his side, as you mentioned, von der Leyen, Starmer, Macron, Merz, Meloni, Rutte, Stubb, and that solidarity does matter to Ukraine. What doesn't change is Putin's so-called offer, demanding mineral-rich land that he can't capture militarily in exchange for a worthless piece of paper. Trump may call that peace, but for Ukrainians, this isn't peace. It's excusing and rewarding more than a decade of torture, mass killings, and towns razed to the ground, all under this pretense of peace. Putin offers nothing but empty promises, the likes of which we have heard and seen before with Budapest, with Minsk, and countless ceasefires. He gives up nothing and still expects to be rewarded for his crimes. Make no mistake, Ukrainians will not accept this. Parliament wouldn't vote for it, and the public would protest on the streets if somehow this deal was accepted. So tomorrow isn't about a peace deal. It's about whether the West finally shows it has the backbone to stop rewarding Putin's aggression.
Okay. There does seem to be more talk about some sort of concession of land. Sometimes, reading in the newspaper, in the Sunday Times today, sometimes referred to as not recognising it as no longer part of Ukraine, but actually recognising areas of Donbass as being under Russian occupation, just to get round some of the diplomatic declarations that would need to be done. Is there a sense that perhaps with a nation that is war fatigued, that there is perhaps a peace deal to be done, which could involve conceding some area of the Donbass to Vladimir Putin, as long as it's accompanied by very, very strong security backups, i.e. troops on the ground, backups that would mean that Vladimir Putin cannot use this new acquisition of territory as a springboard to try again to overrun Ukraine?
Well, Putin's demand wasn't about some areas of the Donetsk region. It was about controlling all of the Donetsk region, and Ukraine currently controls a third of that region. And even at the current pace that Russia is fighting, it would take Russia, if this deal wasn't accepted, it would take Russia in excess of 4 years to combat it, to sort of capture all of this land militarily, alongside an estimated of near 2 million combined Russian injuries and deaths. So we are talking about not freezing the current line where the fighting is. We are talking about giving up land without fighting. Regarding the troops and guarantees of troops, nobody like Putin didn't speak about having foreign troops on the Ukrainian land or NATO troops or European troops. I don't think he would ever accept that. The current conversation should be about having a ceasefire first and then talking about anything else that should come after it. But of course, that's not what Putin is asking for. He's saying he's given empty promises that he would not invade further, but he just wants the Donetsk region to be his. But of course, we've had these promises before. We've had them in 1994 with the Budapest Memorandum, when Russia promised security, guarantee security assurances to Ukraine. We had this with Minsk agreements twice in 2014 and 2015. We had it with numerous ceasefires that Russia would, on a very, very regular basis, break since the invasion of the Donbas. So this is not even worth the paper that it would be written on. We know everybody in Ukraine finds it laughable that anyone in the West would seriously consider Putin's words to act out and to be the true thing.
Maria, we don't know the details of what was discussed on Friday's meeting. It was just about 3 hours behind closed doors in Alaska. Some people, and again, we don't know, this is speculation, have put forward the idea that part of a so-called peace deal from Vladimir Putin would include the replacement of President Zelensky, or somehow forcing President Zelensky to have an election. Vladimir Putin's made no secret that he wants to see the back of the Ukrainian president. Should there be elections in Ukraine, what's President Zelensky standing at the moment?
Well, President Zelensky, even when he came into power, he said that he doesn't want to do this forever, like very much is what we see happening in Russia at the moment. When he came into power, he said that he only wants to be a president for 4 years. Obviously, at that time, he didn't know that a full-scale invasion would happen. Ukrainians very much want to hold democratic elections. That, we've had several in the last over 30 years of independence. Russia also had several, but they only de facto had one president throughout this time. The fighting has to stop first, because we can't put under danger people's lives just to hold elections. And obviously any election period would mean a change of government, and that would bring a certain level of instability to Ukraine, which of course Russia would use to their own advantage, much like they used to their own advantage when Ukraine had a change of government in 2014, and we saw Crimea being occupied and invaded, and we saw the Donbas being invaded shortly afterwards.
Mm-hmm. And just finally, Maria, we have been talking to Ukrainian MPs, we have been talking to Ukrainian journalists. All of them have been saying that there is war fatigue in the country after so many years of struggling to keep the Russian forces at bay. Is there any concessions you think that the Ukrainian people would be willing to make just to see an end to this war? You've talked about how difficult it would be to cede land that has been fought over and blood spilled, but are there any concessions that the Ukrainian people would be prepared to consider to bring an end to the fighting?
Well, Ukrainian people, including myself, all have friends and all have family who have been killed or injured or have lived under occupation. I personally have had 2 journalist friends who have been killed just working as journalists because they wanted to report from Russia-occupied areas. And before that, they were tortured, so not just killed, and spent a long time in Russian captivity. Currently, as we're speaking, my friend has had to evacuate her family from the Dnipropetrovsk region, which is not even officially occupied, because it's being heavily bombed by Russia as we speak, with cabs and drones. They load in their entire lives into a small van because there's no water, no electricity, no shops left, and drones flying overhead. And we're talking about central Ukraine, not even eastern Ukraine or southern Ukraine. So Ukrainians will have memory of that actually ceding land means handing over our people to a regime that is formally charged with war crimes, including abducting our children. That's not peace. It's surrendering innocent lives to occupation and abuse. We will remember what happened in Irpin and Bucha when they were occupied just for 1 month, and the mass killings that those areas have seen. So Ukrainians will very much be going into this with the perspective of not forgetting, not forgiving Russia for what happened. And make no mistake, they will never think that Putin will suddenly mean anything different this time when he gives his empty promises.
Maria, thank you for giving us your time. Good to speak to you. Maria Romanenko, there, a Ukrainian journalist.